Hello everybody, my name is Devidas Pai. I welcome you all to this Green Belt training module which will be spread across through this 10, 11, 12 hours that we will go through. Before we start with the Six Sigma Green Belt course, let me introduce myself. My name is Devidas Pai. Well, as far as my qualification and background is concerned, I am currently working with ICAT as their global consultant, along with many other companies where I do freelance consultancy, project management work with ICAT as well as other consultancy firm. My basic background qualification is I'm a B mechanical engineer from Mumbai University. My total experience is around 25 years. Out of which initial 12 years has been into a hardcore manufacturing setup. Whereas last 13 years I have been into process improvements, Six Sigma implementation, training, as well as business excellence models, as statistical process control implementations, Kaizen implementations, and many other business excellence models that we actually use in different industry. Uh, my last assignment with the industry, I was working as a Lean Six Sigma program manager as a head of India region for Alpha Level India Limited in Pune. I was heading the 7 plants that are there of Alpha Level in India, 5 at Pune and 2 in Satara, whereas one distribution center which is located at Navi Mumbai in Airoli area. Well, I have implementation experience of as far as Six Sigma is concerned is around 12-13 years. I have done my Six Sigma Black Belt training from Kimpro, and I have worked in companies like Onida, that is Merck Electronics, IT industry like Datamatics. I have worked in a fast consumer goods industry like Godfrey Phillips, and in fact a supplier development experience in US also for around 1 year. I was heading the quality department of Halliburton Industries, that is an oil exploration energy services company in India. And then for last 2 years I was with Alpha Level. Last 1 year I left the company. I decided to go on my own, and this is where my association with ICAT has started. And I'll be taking you through this green belt training course. Uh, as given to me understand, you will be going through this recorded module, and then we'll be having question and answer sessions where if you have any doubts about any of the course content, or you either need further explanation on those things, I'll be there to guide you or support you on this regard. Also, though it is not part or no in ICCT module, we are using the Excel sheet. I'll be showing you how those statistical tools that can be used are required to be used in fact in the Six Sigma methodology. The Minitab is a software that we generally use with Six Sigma, where it covers most of the statistical tools that we use, and it helps us in faster calculation computation, and it gives a better graphical output and analytical output through Minitab. So whatever examples that we'll be going through in this session, we will be using the Minitab software and try to understand how we can use it and how we can use the tool to analyze and make inferences using those statistical tools. Secondly, though the PPT is basically uh, the main presentation will be from the ICCT global part, but this will be also be supported with my experience or my uh, day-to-day examples which help you in a better understanding and getting a better uh, grip on this subject through use of Minitab and other practical problems and solutions. So we'll start with the first part of it, what is we call as the Six Sigma overview. Uh, Before we go into the details of what Six Sigma is about and how it started, I hope people have a little bit background of what Six Sigma is about, and what we are going to learn in this module, the first module, the overview, how the origin of Six Sigma started, what is the impact of Six Sigma, what is the definition of a Six Sigma, what we call or which process you will call as a Six Sigma process. Then an initial introduction to what we call as a DMAC phase, where DMAC is this abbreviation for define, measure, analyze, improve and control, and what those phases mean and why it is important to go in a structured way. And then introduction to mean and variance, but we will not cover this mean and variance in this overview chapter. I feel it is better we'll understand this mean and variance when we go to the measure phase or the M phase of the Six Sigma methodology. So I feel we'll start with this overview. I hope there's a, I don't know, I've been through this method, Six Sigma training and project implementation for 12-13 years now. And whenever I ask people about what is Six Sigma, the first, the main two common answers that I get is, so this is regarding some quality improvement initiative, and secondly, it's some statistical tools are used to improve some processes, which to a certain extent is right, but it's not a whole truth. Please do not, the first thing I'll try to, or I'll request you all to remove from your head is Six Sigma is not only about quality. That is very first important thing, and that it doesn't mean that each and every project that you'll be doing in Six Sigma does necessarily require only statistical tools. There cannot be a project where you don't use the statistical tools and it will not be called as a Six Sigma project. No, it's nothing like that. Yes, we generally 90% of the cases we do use one or two statistical tools, but it is not something that is mandatory that if I don't use a statistical tool in my project, I have not done a Six Sigma project. No, there have been very beautiful good projects where you have basically used not a single statistical tool, you have used a beautiful good process map to try to measure the processes, try to understand the processes and find out areas for improvement on those processes without using a statistical simple many complicated statistical tools, and the benefits have been tremendous. So the first thing I'll request all the participants is please remove that blockade, or if I'm not good in statistics or I don't use a Six Sigma or a statistical tool or a Minitab statistical software or a statistical tool, I have not done a good project. My definition, my understanding for a good Six Sigma project or a bad Six Sigma project, first it should have a logical, structured way of approaching a problem. That is very important. And then those improvements before and after has to be proven and has to be visible to all and everybody. Those who are going to get benefit out of these projects and the other ones who are going to actually sponsor. It has to be very, from my point of view is basically you need to have visible change before and after implementation. And it has to be followed a certain logic and a structured approach of solving a problem. And that is the key, I think, of what a good Six Sigma project is and what not a good Six Sigma project is. So before we go into what we call what is Six Sigma, how it started, I need to understand and I feel that the first thing that, as I said, that it is not only about quality, it's about your business process improvements. Now, when I talk about certain business process improvement, when I say business, what do you mean by a business? And what are the first two requirements of any kind of business that you actually, anybody wants to start a business, what are the first two basic requirements that you need to have? And I feel the first thing for any business to exist is that you require a customer. And the second important is Many people tell me it's the finance or it's the money or the capital that is required. No. The second important thing is that you need to have a process in place for any business to exist. If you don't have a customer and you don't have a process in place to deliver those goods or services to any customer, your business is never going to succeed. And then when we talk about Six Sigma, for any business to implement Six Sigma, there has to be these two requirements. There has to be a customer and there has to be a process. When I talk about a certain process, what do you mean by process? What is the definition of a process? To my understanding, a process is something that there is an input, there are a series of activities that you put on those inputs and you get an output. So converting an input to a series of activities or techniques on those inputs and getting an output, basically we talk about a process. Now when we talk about a customer, everybody says the customer is the king. But really when we talk about being customer is a king, before we deliver those goods or services or whatever we in the business we are, before we actually say whether we are able to satisfy or delight a customer, what the first important thing in any business to succeed is you need to understand those customers' requirements or needs in the right manner, in the right perspective. And if you are not able to understand those customer needs, then you will never be able to fulfill those customer needs. Now, to give a simple example, I think most of us relate the best example in India about Six Sigma implementation. If at least people from Mumbai might be knowing through their daily life, is the example of Dabbawalas. I hope people know who are the Dabbawalas in Mumbai. Their process, in fact, is considered even better than Six Sigma. They are into a range of 7 to 8 Sigma level. What those Sigma level are there? Why higher is better? We'll try to understand as we go along. But if you go and understand what the actual Dabbawalas actually do, or actually what is the business, however, to people who are not aware of those activities, Dabbawalas basically are basically what we call as a tiffin carriers. The process is something like that. There are many households in Mumbai where the person who goes to office goes very early. So their people in their house, whether their wives or mother or sister, whoever, who cooks their food, and they require their home food to be. They enjoy having their home made food at their offices in the lunchtime. So since they are not able to get those when they leave the office, normally what they do is they avail the service of the dabbawalas. The dabbawalas come to their house and the lady in the house basically packs the tiffin in a certain box with a small case in it and is handed over to the dabbawala. It takes the dabbawala, takes that tiffin from the person's house and the process is it delivers it to the railway route to the person's office wherever he is located in the part of Mumbai. And in the afternoon again, those empty dabbas or the tiffin boxes are taken from the offices and again returned back to the household of the person of whose house is located in Mumbai. So it is two-way process. The hot tiffin is taken to the office and from the office again it is brought back to the residence of the customer. Now if you compare this with any courier services, except for the courier services where it is just more normally a one way where it is from the sender to the receiver, not reverse, because here again the empty tiffin comes back. And then you see it's something similar to a logistics process. Whether you send a courier and envelope, it is similar. What you will see in today's scenario when we talk about logistics process, when you try to use a courier service, everything is barcoded. You have a airway, wheel number, everything is tagged. It has from which station it was picked up, at what time, and all those things that is there in place. But in case of the dabbawalas, the biggest part is they don't use any SAP methodology or barcoding system or Nothing that the type of that is used. They use only some color coding systems and some numerological numbers, and based on that they deliver the tiffin to the concerned customer. Now, when we talk about a very simple process, but when we talk about errors or defects in a process on a product or a service, what do you think will be the two types of defects or the types of defects that will occur in this type of a process? Normally, the first defect that I will consider here that will occur is basically the first error, type of error or defect that will occur in this process or possibly will occur in this process is the first one is the tiffin doesn't reach the customer in time. For example, if his lunch time is at 1 o'clock and the tiffin reaches the customer at 2 or 2:30 in the afternoon, it's of no use to that person. So the time is very important, as to reach in time. And secondly, the dabba has to be from the person's own house. It cannot be that X's dabba reaches Y and Y's dabba reaches X. Because if that happens, please understand it will be a big uh, defect from a customer perspective. Very specifically, if there are people who are vegetarians and non-vegetarians. Suppose the non-vegetarians different reaches a vegetarian's office, what will happen? He will lose the confidence in that process, right? That okay, it's really shocking for me. How can I get a tiffin which has total a chicken, mutton, or a fish in my tiffin, which is never used to, or is cultural, or is religious belief do not permit him to actually eat those type of food. And once this type of error will occur in their process, what will happen? Next day, he will lose that customer. So from a Dabbawala's perspective at time, whether it is raining, whether it is the trains are not working on time, irrespective of whatever the difficulties in those delivering those dabbas, he has to reach the customer or he has to deliver the tiffins on time and to the right person at the right place without any errors. Now, when we talk about those things, do you know how many errors do they make? They make only 3 to 4 errors in a billion transactions. What is the billion transactions? Crores or hundreds and lakhs of dabbas they send. Only 2 or 3 tiffins either go delay are getting delayed or they are delivered to the wrong person. And this is what we call as a world-class process. Without using any sophisticated technology, bar coding system, SAP module, or people who are from MBA backgrounds, these people are just 8, 9, 10 past guys, just using color coding system, just using basic uh, common sense, logical way of delivering those process, which sets them apart from huge logistic companies. They are even better than the what we call the UBSs or the Federal Express. Even their processes are not that accurate. But these Dabbawalas, though they are uneducated, they don't have the software background, still they are able to work at a very world-class level. Now, when I talk about the Six Sigma process, the Six Sigma process is we call as is 3 to 4 defects in a million transaction. What do you mean by million? That is 10 lakhs. So when I deliver 10 lakh tiffins to my customer, I am expected not to make more than 3 to 4 defects on those 10 lakhs deliveries. Here we are, please understand, we are not talking here about zero defects. We are looking at certain areas that it will happen sometimes because of say a monsoon or a huge technical breakdown in the railways where we call as a special cause in Six Sigma. We'll understand what those special causes are in our next modules. But this zero, there are people who feel why not zero defects? It is not possible practically in any process to have a zero defect. There will be instances where you will something in the process which will be out of your control and which you not when at that time the defects are expected to happen. Now this is what we'll talk about Six Sigma, how to make your process better and better. And when we talk about better processes, we need to make our defects in our processes lower and lower and lower. So that's what we'll talk about in Six Sigma. And how it was originated, let's understand that. It was basically started by Motorola company. I think everybody might be knowing now Motorola what it is, in 1980s. The story as it goes basically, uh, Motorola basically were the originators of the communication equipments in those era, and what they found during their analysis what was that whenever they used to make those communication equipments and they used to get complaints from the customer, huge complaints that okay that these products are defective, there's a certain amount of problems on those telecommunication equipments. When they started analyzing those complaints and we started learning those where in which the processes these defects happen, they came across one common understanding is that the complaints were higher on those products or products where the product has been reworked or has been gone through a rework process, and the products which went through right first time, the number of complaints on those type of products were significantly lower. So they came with an idea, okay, well, how do we try to improve our process so that we try to reduce our rework and defects in our processes to as minimum as possible, and see that whenever we run our processes, it becomes first time right. With this objective in mind, they appointed one person which is called Bill Smith and Bob Gaffin. They took this initiative, and that's where they started this journey of what we call as a Six Sigma methodology. The Six Sigma, what we call Six Sigma is still a trademark of the Motorola company, and through this initiative they were able to develop a structured methodology which they termed as Six Sigma methodology, okay, for which they received the Malcolm Baldrige or National Quality Award in 1998. But this is what the initiation of Six Sigma is about. But the whole gamut or the popularization of Six Sigma was in fact started by Jack Welch in 1990s. Jack Welch was the CEO of GE, that is General Electric, and he made it mandatory in each and every GE company that each of the managerial person, whether it is lower management or higher management people, need to compulsory implement and get themselves involved in Six Sigma process, and that's where they were able to save millions of dollars in defect reduction in Six Sigma, and that's where, and since GE is basically a global giant and their presence in almost each and every major countries in the world, that's where this methodology was spread across the world, and then many other companies started implementing and getting understanding what Six Sigma is about, and the whole credit of what we call the credit of making Six Sigma universal name goes to Jack Welch and G, and that's where it's spread across the world, and it's absolutely in India also. And when we talk about Six Sigma, it's basically a structured measurement system, the structured problem solving approach. You need to have a disciplined approach to change, and it's basically it has to be in line with your business strategy. Basically a Greek alphabet, it is the 18th letter in the Greek alphabet, and very important, it's about having consistency. It's not making your processes good for one time, it has to be good, consistent over a period of time. That's what we understand why we call it is very important, not only to understand from a perspective of averages, but also from a perspective of variation. What is variation, what is mean and averages? We'll try to understand in the further modules. Basically, the term sigma is used to designate the distribution or spread about the average of any process or procedure. We'll try to understand it in detail as we go along. Okay. the simple thing is, as the defect reduces, the capability of the process goes on improving, and it is basically the model that we used to actually designate in a graphical and a statistical model. We call it a normal distribution curve. If you see this curve carefully, it is basically a bar graph from where it has been drawn, and there are certain small hexagonal areas we call as a which actually from which the bell shape, what we call as, has been derived. Okay, and then you see there is 1 sigma level and 2 sigma level on the 3 sigma level on the right, and then -1 sigma level and -2 sigma level and -3 sigma level on the left. Okay, and then there is certain percentage, there is 68%, 95% and 99.7%. And there is a certain misconception. Okay, when we talk about Six Sigma, it is 3 on the right and 3 on the left. That's why it is called 6. No, please understand, it has to be 6 standard deviation on either side of the mean. The mean, or what we call as the average, stands around here. Okay, which I am trying to put an imaginary line. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 standard deviation on the right, and -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6 standard deviation on the left. When these 6 standard deviations fulfill your customer requirements, then only the process is called as a Six Sigma process. Why this 68%? Why this 95%? What it actually denotes? Why 99.7%? We'll understand when we understand what is actually, how this histogram is derived. This graphical figure is called as a histogram, and how those standard deviation is calculated, how this spread is measured. When we talk about, since we are discussing about the averages and mean, the very important thing that we talk about in Six Sigma is, don't look only at the averages, but also understand what is the variation in the process. Many times the average gives you a very wrong, what we call a wrong idea about the process. For example, if we take 2 delivery times, for example, you got a pizza from your, say, a Domino's outlet or US pizza outlet. Now, sometimes it might, one day it will appear, or you will get the pizza in 10 minutes, and might be the next day the same pizza you will get in 40 minutes. So what will be the average? 40 plus 10 divided by 2, that is 50 divided by 2, that is 25 minutes. But is this a good process, the delivery process? No, one day is able to deliver in 10, the other day is taking 40 minutes. So on average it becomes 25. But what happens next? Suppose one is different outlet, to buy the same pizza, he delivers you in one day 27 minutes and the second day in 23 minutes. Again the addition becomes 50 divided by 2. Now here again the average is 25. But which of the two processes is better, the 1041 or the 2723 one? I will prefer the second one, because there is low variation in process. 2324, the variation is hardly 4 minutes, right? But in first case, the variation is about 30 minutes. 40 minus 10, that becomes around 30 minutes. So I don't have that type of confidence from the first one, because today you might get it 10 minutes, next day you might get in 40 minutes. But in second one, I am able to make a good, okay, if I say around half an hour before I want actually to eat that pizza, if I order it half an hour before, I expect it to get in 25 minutes. But here I am not very sure. I might get too early or I might get it too late. So when we talk about Six Sigma process, we should not only take the averages into consideration, but also, secondly, very important thing is, we should also take the variation in this process. There are different ways and methodologies of calculating variations. The sigma value we call as a standard deviation value. That's how to calculate, we'll understand it. And higher the value of those standard deviation, higher the variation in the process, the less capable this process is. The lower the value of the standard deviation of your process, the better the control of that process is, less the variation is there in the process. So Six Sigma, the less the variation, better the process, more the variation, it's a less better process. And the likelihood of you developing defects in the process is very high. So we understand this is just an overview right now what we are going through. And why we, when we talk about normally in quality, or we, since many you might be working in a quality atmosphere or in a function, when I say 99% quality, many of the people say wow. But in Six Sigma, when we talk about converting a Six Sigma number, it is just 3.8 Sigma level. And when we are talking about 5 to 6 Sigma improvement, the main important function is difference between a normal way of or a classical way of looking at quality is how good I am. But Six Sigma looks from a little different way how many defects I am able to actually generate. And when I say, or if I am looking from a good perspective, when I say the Six Sigma process, it has to be 99.999666% good. What happens? Why it is so good, important to have 99.99% defects, or just 3 to 4 defects in a million? Suppose I ask you tomorrow, I want you to fly from say Delhi to Mumbai, say on an Air India flight or whatever it is, whichever flight I'm talking about. And I say, okay, this flight safety record is 99% during landing and takeoff. What I'm trying to tell you is, out of 100 flights this company or this airline operates, there's a possibility that one of the live flight is going to crash during landing or takeoff. Are you going to sit on those type of flights? No, because the probability of 1 in 100 is quite huge. But when I say just 3 or 4 flights of this airline has met with a crash in 1 million, that is 10 lakh flights take off, and then the confidence or the level of confidence in those airlines will be certainly high. In a surgery area or in water supply area, you cannot have those, or a atomic or a nuclear type of industry. You cannot say I am 99% good. So those type of world-class processes we need to actually have in our day-to-day processes and try to understand those, how we can improve or reduce our defects on this process. So in today's world, in fact, 99% is not good enough. You need to go beyond that. So these are different comparisons if you were 99% good and what it were if you were, say, just, if that same processes were at Six Sigma level, what would have been the improvement on those processes. Okay. Now, to understand further what actually has been the impact of Six Sigma on different companies, you see GE has been able to realize almost $1.5 billion in 99 through Six Sigma. They were able to save around 400 million in investment in new capacities. So there have been huge savings in terms of financial numbers that companies have been able to derive through Six Sigma methodology. Companies which I have worked and we have, the implementation has been good enough, we were able to save around 2 to 3 crores annually through improvements in Six Sigma. Not necessarily all the projects have to be huge. Small projects, very good projects, impacting projects, multiple people working on different areas of concern, and those combined effect, small improvements will result in huge savings through your companies. And it has to touch the bottom line. Here we just not about just improvement. It has to work, or it has to create an impact on your businesses. And when you, and that's where it's very important that when you select a project for improvement, it's very important that you need to have the support of the top management through this initiative. The biggest problem normally in Six Sigma or area or companies fail to get the benefits of Six Sigma is the top management normally is not involved or is not interested in the initiative. And unless and until the top management gives an interest or takes an interest in this initiatives, it is not going to work in any of the companies. If it is a small company or medium-sized company or large corporate. The very important first thing before we start a Six Sigma initiative, any company, is whether the top management is involved in this initiative or not. Now this is just a chart where we are able to understand that okay, when I talk about the sigma capability of 2 sigma levels, out of I'll be able to create a defect rate of 3,08,530. I'll go through this table and then we'll understand. When I improve it from 2 sigma level to 3 sigma level here, from 2 to 3, I reduce the defects from 3,08,000 to 66,807. When I improve it from 3 sigma level to 4 sigma level, the defects reduce from 66,000 to 6,200. When I reduce the defects from or improve the sigma capability from 4 to 5, I reduce the defect from 6,000 to 233. And when I improve the sigma capability to 6 sigma, my defect rates become 3 to 4 defects. Now let's understand to the initial example of the Dabbawalas. If the Dabbawalas were operating, we said they are operating at much better than 6 sigma level. If they were operating at 2 sigma level, or the processes were at 2 sigma level, out of the 10 lakhs dabbas that they actually deliver, 3,08,537 dabbas would either reach the customer late or they would have reached the wrong customer. If the dabbawalas were actually working at 2 sigma level, means out for every 10 lakh tiffins that they deliver, 3 lakh tiffins would either go late or they will be delivered to the wrong person, which is a very high proportion, right? Almost 31%, right? If they improve their processes from 2 sigma to 3 sigma, out of 10 lakh tiffins, 66,807 tiffins will go to the wrong person and wrong time. If they improve it from 3 to 4 sigma level, the defects will reduce from out of 10 only 6,210 tiffins will go to the wrong person or at the wrong time. If they improve it from 4 to 5, only 233 dabbas will go to the wrong person or wrong time, and since they are operating at more than 6 sigma level, only 3 to 4 dabbas out of 10 lakh dabbas will go to the wrong person or reach it at the wrong time. Normally an average company works in this zone 2 to 3 sigma level. As you go into this zone 4, 4.5 and 5 sigma level, those are the companies which we operate at world class levels. And then if you reach 6 sigma level, that's the company where you will have a benchmarking, the best in the business. So normal average companies, they work in this zone of 2 to 3 sigma levels. I'll show you another PPT where in detail where it actually is showing this chart as you say on this left, right? The sigma level is 6, the defect rate is 3 to 4 defects. When it goes to 6 to 5.9, the defect increases to 5. 5.8, it is 8. For example, 4 sigma level, the data defects is 6,210. When I reach 3 sigma level, the defects is 66,800. When I reach 2 sigma level, it is 3,08,000. When I reach 1 sigma level, 6,90,000. And when I reach 0.1 sigma level, 9,20,000 out of 10 lakhs. Now this is what we call a DPMO. DPMO stands for the abbreviation defects per million opportunities. Now how to calculate the sigma levels and the DPMO levels and how it is interchangeable? I can calculate the DPMO level and correspondingly through this table I can convert it into equivalent sigma level, or I can calculate the sigma level and I can have an understanding how is the correspondingly DPMO. Both ways we can do. When to calculate DPMO and when to calculate sigma level, we'll try to understand as we go into the major phase. But this is a standard table which is available, or there are certain Excel macros which have been developed where you can put a DPMO value and you'll get a sigma value, or you put a sigma value, you'll get a DPMO value, which is interchangeable. Just wanted to show this. The standard tables are available. Okay. So here what we are looking at is this, how the sigma, as you see, as the defects goes on decreasing, the sigma level goes on increasing, right? So this is what Six Sigma is all about. And very important is what is the methodology or the approach that we put during Six Sigma. We'll understand that we take a practical problem, we use statistical tools to actually convert that practical problem into a statistical problem. Again, we use those statistical tools to analyze those issues, and we come with a statistical solution. Okay, and from this statistical solution, again we convert it into a practical solution. Now, if you see this, people will say, everything is related to statistics. No, there is again starting problem is a practical, and the ending is also practical. Now, if it was that okay, people who are very good in statistics can only do Six Sigma, then it would have been that okay, you don't require a process. No, it has to be a teamwork where the practical experience along with the statistical analysis is worked in a logical fashion to get the best out of the processes and find out practical ways of implementing the best possible solutions to those problems. So the methodology, whether it is used in a manufacturing industry or a service industry or in a HR function, in a cost accounting function or a pharma industry or a tobacco manufacturing industry, irrespective of whether industry you perform, the methodology remains same. It is a practical problem converted into a statistical problem and again converted into a practical solution. Okay, and then when we are talking about statistical solutions or implementation, why do you use statistics? Because the reason we use statistics is either to define the process, or when you use certain statistical tools, we should be able to get certain inferences out of this statistical tool. There are two types of statistics that we use. We call it descriptive statistics. When we talk about descriptive statistics, we are able to describe using statistical tool how this process is behaving, whether it is good, bad. We are able to describe this process in a certain manner. When we talk about inferential statistics, what we are doing when we use those statistical tools, we are able to make certain inferences. When we talk about Six Sigma, very important is this is a data-based methodology. Everything we talk about in Six Sigma here on has to be based on data. Okay, you will have certain experiences which will definitely help us, but those experiences has to be backed up with data. Without data, there cannot be any Six Sigma project or Six Sigma implementation. And it is all how it is just based on certain gut feeling. It doesn't have any standing in any Six Sigma project. So everything is data driven in Six Sigma. And when there is data, it has to be a certain structured way of gathering those data. Now when we talk about data, and there's certain, when we call about certain information, when in today's world we talk about IT industry or the information technology industry, why don't we tell, and everything when we talk about these things is basically coming through a certain amount of data. Why it is not called as a data technology? What is the difference between data and information? The difference is when data, when analyzed, become information. And today we want information, we don't want data. These statistical tools will help you convert that or work on that data, analyze those data so that you get a certain amount of information, and based on the information you will be able to make certain decisions. If you are not able to make any decisions, all the statistical tools or methodologies are useless. So just don't use statistical tools just for the heck of it. You have a certain data, you need to understand, okay, what type of statistical tool is right for this data, And when I analyze this data using this statistical tool, and when it gives me a certain output, how I am going to get information out of that output. And then again I'll convert that information to get a practical solution. So this is what is very important in Six Sigma. It has to actually use data for analyze and getting information and use those information for decision making. Okay. Another very important, and this is basically what we talk about. Important thing is, this is what we already discussed, is called as a normal distribution or bell-shaped curve. You see that this is a requirement, but here the bell has shifted to the left. Okay. In this case, the average is matching with the target, but the variation is very high. Okay. And in this case, there is no defects. That the in this case the data is good, and there are those red ones that we actually are looking here is basically the defects. And when we talk about Six Sigma, in this case we call the center is shifted. In this case the variation is very high, and here it is as good as close to the target. Now we follow 3S methodology in Six Sigma. That is what the first S stands for shrink, the second S stands for shift, and the third S stands for stabilization. So please note down these three things: shift, second is shrink, and third is stabilize. If you see here, the process we need to work is we need to make the average or shift this average from year to year as close as possible to the target. That's why we'll try to shift the process. As the variation is not very high, if you see this, variation in this process is not very high, the spread is not very high. The only problem is it is shifted to the left. So we need to shift it. In this case, the variation is very high. Sorry, we need to reduce this variation. So we need to shrink it. Okay, we shrink the variation in the process. And in this case, we need to sustain or stabilize this process. We need to maintain this today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So this is the methodology that any Six Sigma project we talk about, we'll talk about is either shift the process, shrink the variation, or sustain or shrink or stabilize those processes. Okay. And the very important thing is this, the whole nutshell of Six Sigma is we call it as a Y is a function of X, where Y is the effect, okay, or a symptom, or we need to monitor, or the output or dependent, and X are the independent causes which we need to control or need to eliminate. Now why it's the whole Six Sigma is focused around this? Why is a function of X? I'll give a certain example. The example is something like suppose there's a person, or today I feel okay. Morning I get up, I feel I'm not very comfortable. I feel my body is little bit feverish, okay, and then I'm not having a headache and all those things. So what do I do is I go to the doctor. He examines me. Then what happens? He says, okay, there is certain amount of issue. Let's get your blood checked. And he takes the blood. I send it to the lab. They get the reports. Based on that, he basically finds, okay, that I am suffering from malaria, typhoid, cholera, whatever it is. And then based on those things, he prescribes a certain amount of course which I need to take, or medicinal course, or some dietary controls in that. I say for 15 days, 1 month, depending on the type of disease I have. And then based on those tablets, I feel better and better and better. Now if I take this example, what we are basically, the fever is what? When I get a fever, is it the input, or is the effect, or it is a cause? The fever is basically an effect, the outcome, a symptom of what is the cause. The cause are different things, whether I took polluted water, or there was some problem in my food, or there was some change in the atmosphere, there was sudden rains, there was sudden smoke. Because of those causes, I started having fever, which is a symptom. Now I cannot eliminate or reduce the symptom unless and until I work on those causes. I work on my improving my immune system, or I work on making my water really pollutant free, or I stay in an atmosphere which is pollution free. I control my diet. I don't eat outside food. If I are able to control and manage those excess, automatically my Y, that is the fever, will get controlled and monitored. So in Six Sigma, the Y or the outcome is just then we need to monitor, or just need to look at, but the real work will be done on the X's. The X can be one or multiples. In real life scenario, there will be many few cases where there will be one single X. There will be multiple X's on which you need to work, and you need to work on those X's which are very important. When you are able to work on those very important X's, automatically your Y, that is outcome, will be able to control. So in Six Sigma, the methodology that we follow is we work on the X's and we monitor and control the Y automatically. Okay. So that's where the process part becomes very important. Okay. And there, the methodology that will be followed is called as the DMAC methodology, where D stands for define, M stands for measure, A stands for analyze, I stands for improve, and C stands for control. Okay. When I say, just going back to the just example that we took of my fever, where what do I do in define? I just define, okay, I am having a fever, okay, I am having a headache, and I'm for feeling little bit exhausted, so I define my problem. Then what I do in measure, actually start measuring my fever. What do? I put a thermometer and then measure, okay, how much temperature I am having, and at what time. Does it sustain over the whole 24 hours? It goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down. Where there is a variation in those measurements, I try to monitor those measurements. Then in analyze, what I do, I try to analyze what are the reasons for this fever. What I have done in, what does the doctor do? He checks my blood pressure, he checks my heartbeat, he checks my RBC count, he does urine check or a blood check. You get a certain amount of tests done. Now based on test, you are able to arrive at a root cause. Okay, whether it's because of cholera, because of typhoid, because of malaria, viral fever, whatever it is. Once you know those root causes, you try to work or improve those or eliminate those root causes. That is through improvement. Sorry, that is the improve phase. I take corrective action on those root causes, and based on the improve, once I take action on those root causes, my problem starts eliminating or starts reducing. I have taken, now why is control required? The important thing is you need to sustain it, and that's where normally many of the projects fail. Okay, improvement. But what happens is basically many times, okay, generally if you don't put in your dietary controls, or you take medicine for 10 days and doctor said you need to continuously take it for 1 month, after 10 days you feel better and you say abhi kya zarurat hai is dawai ka, and then what happens is again the same disease goes relapse, because you have not able to sustain or put in the control mechanism in place, whether it is your diet or it is water intake or your tablets on time or the medicines on time. Again the same disease get relapse. So control is also very important. So you define the problem, you measure those problems, so a certain amount of methodology, look at the root causes in analyze, take corrective actions in improve, and then put in control systems in place so that the same problem doesn't get repeated or relapse. So this is what we call as a DMAC methodology. the define, measure, analyze, improve and control phase. That's what we look. It is basically in a circular fashion. We call it, also called as a Deming cycle. If people have worked in a quality scenario, they might be knowing that. Okay, the Deming cycle is basically plan, do, check and act. Again, plan, do, check and act. Now that's what we actually will do in this DMAC methodology. Okay, define, measure, analyze, improve and control. Again, define, measure, analyze and control. So this is what actually we will be going through. The define phase, certain amount of tools and methodologies that we learn in define. Then in measurement, we'll understand how to measure, what is the right way of measurement, why it is important to measure it in the right way. Then we'll try to understand what are the tools that will help us in analyzing those for getting the root causes. Okay, many tools, cause and effect diagram, might be a Pareto chart or scatter plot or FMEA tool. And then improve it, try to find in solutions or optimize those access. And then in control, how we'll put a control mechanism in place so that the benefits or the improvements that we do in any problem solving methodology gets sustained or remain in place over a period of time. So this is what was an overview of what Six Sigma is about. Okay, and then there are certain jargons or certain jargons in place where you actually work in Six Sigma on in a team basis is normally not a good thing to actually work on an individual. No projects to be in Six Sigma has to be done on an individual basis. So what is the role of a black belt or a green belt or a master black belt? What do you mean by a champion? What do you mean by a customer? All those customers everybody knows. A black belt basically is who leads a Six Sigma project on a full-time basis. Yes, basically normally of 4 to 5 weeks of classroom training in methods, statistical and basically team skills. A green belt normally works on small projects on a part-time basis along with his normal job. Normally allocates 25% of his time on a Six Sigma project on a day-to-day basis. Normally he should going through a 1 week of classroom training. A master black belt is beyond a black belt. He gets advanced understanding of statistical tools, and he works with the business champions to keep black belts and help the black belts and Six Sigma leaders in implementation from the overall company's perspective. Now, champion is basically a middle or normally a senior level executive who actually sponsors and supports those projects. Normally in a corporate or an industrial experience, say over vice president or a CEO or a departmental head, depend on the size and type of organization. These people are the top management people who actually should be involved in this project. So as I said in the beginning, the top management people are not involved in this Six Sigma initiative. The system is not going to work on a long run. And then CTQ matrix will understand in the next what critical the quality means. And customer, I don't think I need to explain it on a further basis. So this is what is an overall thing about Six Sigma. The other things, as I said, what is average and how to calculate standard deviation, we'll understand it in the next session or the measure phase. How to calculate the averages and means and medians and modes, ranges, the standard deviation, the variances that I have to understand in the next phase. So this is an overall overview of what Six Sigma is about, and in the next now we'll move into the define phase. If there will be any questions, please in this overview perspective, please try to clarify it before we move into the next phase of define, that is the define phase. Okay, thank you very much.